The sectors are, of course, super important because ecosystems are evolving. And I think you have to simplify it, maybe the PC area as a foundation. Then the internet area came with more SaaS and marketplace models and mobile and cloud and other intelligence. And that's a new wave, new sectors that are popping up. And as an ecosystem, that also requires different policies, probably different talent, also different stakeholders in your ecosystem. The role of the universities may be different if you are more hardware or have a deep tech focus. So that's why it's super important. And another thing is also like those value creation hubs. If you see, for example, on the right, AI, fintech, climate tech, semiconductors, energy, life science, those are all new sectors and they're growing really fast. But it's important that they are sometimes built on each other, but you really want to see like, hey, what does this do and affect on my city, right? And where are my strengths in those sectors, and how do I position my ecosystem to attract talent and also capital for those. So that's really important to decode them a little bit and to see like, hey, and we will go into details which one we have and how cities are performing. We also see that back in the data. If you look here, this is a graph like how growth innovation sectors are defined by the next wave of tech. And here you see the enterprise value growth. So the value of all the companies together by sectors from 2020 to 2025. And here you clearly see the deep tech trends and defense, really one of the fastest growing, semiconductor, cybersecurity space as top sectors. And that requires probably different policies for your city and for your hub. One more, key questions that we always hear back from cities who are focusing on the sectors is like, which sector should you prioritize and nurture? That's, I think, a really important one. If you do defense or you do AI, it requires, again, different talent, different investments, different partners. How do you compare globally on those sectors? Exactly. Maybe you're a smaller city, but you perform really well on the sector, and then you want to see what other sectors are, one to learn from, but also how to attract talent and capital again. But also, and then maybe the third question is, what is the right mix to develop those ecosystems? How many sectors can you develop as a city? If you're tier 1 to tier 2, tier 3 city or hub, and where's the mix and how do you measure that in the correct way? So those are questions that we help with our dashboards and with the data, and then the policies are more effective for cities. Should we look into this year the ranking on some of the sectors, Orla?
Yes, for sure. So maybe just a little heads up on what we're going to do in the rest of the webinar, actually. So we're going to go through a couple of these sector rankings. So it's effectively the same as the ecosystem index, but with a sector lens. So all of the same metrics, but filtered by particular sectors. And we're going to have a look at some of the kind of results, but we're not just going to make it sort of, who are the top 10 in all of these things, but we're going to dive a little deeper as well. So we'll have a little bit a look at comparing some different cities, and also then like single city level analysis, so that you can sort of see how you would be able to go about benchmarking your city for yourself as well. But first of all, we can start with having a look at some of the results. So if we look at the global champions ranking, but through an AI lens, AI obviously being the hot topic of the last few years, well, we can see some of the same names at the top as we saw for the global champions index. So we see Bay Area, New York, and Boston in 1, 2, and 3. But we start seeing the names being reshuffled a little bit here. So on the left is the sort of rank for the AI ranking for these cities, and on the right is what the position is relative to their overall ranking. So when we start seeing some of the movement numbers, that's quite interesting, particularly on the right-hand side here, where we see that Munich actually ranks 11th globally in terms of AI, which is 13 places higher than their overall ranking. Again, we see Tokyo 11 places higher, Cambridge 12 places higher. So what this tells us is that these places really over-index on AI. It means that they're more focused than the average ecosystem. There's sort of more investment, more value creation happening in this sector. And now, of course, every city is going to have a different mix. You can't be kind of strong in everything. If you've got a strength, that means you've got a relative weakness elsewhere. So this is why it's interesting to look at certain sectors and then look at the city overall for their different strengths and not necessarily weaknesses, but just where they're less focused. What we've also done is have a look at this in terms of density as well. So again, looking at that per capita lens. And again, we see some of that, the reshuffling. So amazingly, the Bay Area is still on top, even if you do it by per capita, because they are just, it's even for a big population, it's also just so far ahead. But actually in second place, you have Cambridge in the UK, and then Cambridge in the US in third as part of Greater Boston. But yeah, a much bigger mix, which is interesting. So Tel Aviv, Lausanne, you've got Tallinn in there, you've got Zurich, Pittsburgh in 20 positions higher than in their overall density leader ranking. So again, some of the places that, you know, if you want to focus on a particular sector, or if you're an investor who's looking to understand where they should be looking for a particular sector, this allows you to kind of drill down beyond just the top metrics. And yeah, we also prepared a look at the defense sector as well. So we showed on that slides that Peter was showing before, defense is one of the fastest growing areas at the moment. It used to be an area within startups that really wasn't touched by a lot of investors, and that was much more difficult to develop in and to crack into. But in the last few years, certainly a huge amount of momentum going in there. And we see some much bigger movements in here. So it is a smaller sector overall, and so it means that when you get that kind of concentration or focus, you see really big swings. And yeah, so Munich again in third place, 21 places above their overall ranking. And yeah, we've also got Hangzhou, it's got much higher, Pittsburgh in the US as well. So this gives us a completely different outlook compared to the overall ranking. And again, if we look on that density lens, we see just a much broader mix of places that are kind of populating the top than if we were just to look at the overall sort of scale lens of the global ranking. But yeah, as I said, we also wanted to show how you can kind of see some of this data in action yourself and kind of customize what kind of comparisons you want to do. So I'm going to show exactly how you can do that on the Dealroom app as well. So we'll just switch over to my screen. Here we go. So yeah, anyone can kind of start exploring. You can kind of play along if you like as well, and explore it while we're doing it here. But if on the Dealroom platform, over on the left-hand side here, you'll see locations, and under that, tech ecosystem index. And we showed actually on a previous webinar, we showed kind of through the global champions, density leaders, and rising stars areas. But yeah, here we also want to dive into the sector strengths. So we'll go in here as well. So the first thing you'll see in here is, so you can see the same things that I was showing in that previous slide. You can sort of filter by AI, or you can filter by defense as well. But we can also have a look at a few other sectors. So there's a lot more here to dive into as well. Also, do feel free to drop questions into the chat. And if there's particular comparisons you want to see, we can try and do that while we're doing it as well. I'll try and keep an eye on the questions. But first of all, maybe have a look at space tech. Yeah, it's actually very quite interesting to look at. But we see LA is the top deep tech space tech hub in the world. Now, this is where SpaceX was founded. And so a lot of activity around there. But we see, again, some of the over-indexing or under-indexing measures on the right-hand side here. And we can see Toulouse actually super strong, much higher than its overall ranking in here. Now, this ranking is more than just the 20 that I showed on that slide as well. So you can see all of the hubs that are in the ranking, 325 of them, by all of these different metrics. So you can, see exactly where you would rank on each sector, which I'll kind of show in a second as well. But yeah, we can also have a look at it in that density lens that I mentioned before. And so when we switch to the per capita basis, we can see that Toulouse is actually on top. So quite a lot of activity there for a small place, and lots happening in space tech.
A lot of potential.
Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. Yes, and really nice to explore this and see, like, basically beyond just the headlines of the top.
Can you click on Toulouse, how the city, if it looks like, So
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. So if we click through, then we can see actually all of the city's sectors and where they under or over index. So yeah, space tech for Toulouse is where they are highest relative to their overall ranking. This is on the champions view. We can also switch to density if we want to as well. And we also see some strengths in defense and robotics. Obviously, there's often some overlap between some of these areas as well. Also strong in food tech, transportation, and then areas where there's less going on would be in blockchain and cybersecurity and fintech, again, relative to their ranking. So it really means that you're able to maybe also sense check again this data against what might be in your policy. So what we've also seen in some cases, for example, is that the sort of economic objectives of a city are maybe climate tech and AI and mobility or something like that. And then actually, if you look at the startups, the reality of what's there, it might be that maybe there's less going on in climate tech than you realize, and actually maybe there's a small cluster of semiconductors companies that could be really promising that you kind of didn't really realize, and that they're again really over-indexing. So it allows you to kind of be data-driven and informed in understanding what startups you have and where you might be able to direct some of the support and services in an ecosystem.
And how would you, Orla, if cities would be, okay, we need to choose, difficult question maybe, but you cannot be good in everything. Like, how do you see it if they need to focus on a couple of sectors? How would you advise them?
Yeah, I mean, I think tricky to say. I mean, this I would say is this data is one bit of the ingredient that you should put into some of that decision making. It's not that you should just say, okay, space, defense, and robotics, that's the only thing we're going to focus on in Toulouse. But it's more that informing evidencing piece that I mentioned. Does this match what the intentions are? And also, we can track this over time as well. So is the needle moving in some of the areas that have been the focus areas? Equally, some places or some sectors might not need as much support as they once did. If you sort of think of London and fintech, for example, fintech we can even look it up here, because you can also just sort of search by a particular hub. So yeah, unsurprisingly, London over indexes on fintech. Equally, it's a very mature ecosystem in London now. And while it was really important and really influential that there was a lot of ecosystem support for the fintech startups early on, it might be that they don't actually need that level of attention anymore, because it's just a mature sector. So that's also why you wouldn't necessarily just take the top 3 and say that's what we're focusing on. But you also don't want to be picking sectors blind, and this allows you to be informed about some of the decision making and focusing of resources. I think the other thing as well, maybe as part of your question, is like, how many sectors should you focus on? And And that, I mean, difficult to say, like you can't prioritize everything basically. So having some level of focus while also having broad startup support, like there's a lot of things that ecosystems can do that are not sector focused, but that just enable entrepreneurship and connection making and you know, connecting capital to startups. And then, you know, whether it's 1 or 3 or 5 sectors, or you know, that might be quite a lot. But yeah, at least we're hoping to provide some pointers anyway with these tools, which people can play around with.
And with the sector, it's also kind of important with those, where as a city or economic development organization, this is the data that we have from the funding, but also the talent, the flywheel of talent. Like if you have a company that's successful and the startup founder factory comes out of that. So you have a company in whatever space, and now SpaceX goes to the market, and there's a lot of like employees maybe who start new startups in space because they have the experience. And that is that competitive advantage that you can develop as a city and a region, right? So that flywheel effect also applies, or the sector strength also applies to talent, right? The concentration of talent and the flywheel effect of talent, the startup mafia, how we call it, out of those companies that are successful. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll show a little bit on startup mafias in a sec as well. Actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's also sometimes a branding piece. Like, you know, London branded itself really well on fintech, and that attracts talent as well, or attracts investment. And so you can also use this data to you know, brand yourself as a quantum city or semiconductor city.
Yeah, I think this is a really good point, that also cities and regions could sometimes do better. There's some that are doing really better. Like just promote yourself, right? With, hey, we are the #1 cybersecurity hub in the world if you look at the concentration, right? And the number, and then that will also attract certain talent again and capital, right? Because like talent attracts other talent, and ambition comes together. So use this data as well to say like, hey, we are maybe not the number in the top 10 as the size or density, but in this sector with the universities and maybe with spin out and maybe with other partners, we are maybe in the top 2 or 3. And if you really have a passion or you want to invest in this sector, come to us. Yeah.
Yes, I see. I'm just looking at the chat and I see a few questions about methodology. So if I just read out, so can we get a bit more information about methodologies and data points harvested for the analysis? How you did that great work. Would also be interested in this question: how did you collect the data? Curious about the methodologies. So I'm going to go into that as well. And in fact, it's all in this dashboard, which is handy. So I'm going to actually go back to the Global Champions section here. And if we scroll down, we will see this button here for detailed view. And now this is the same. This also works the same across density leaders and rising stars. But here is now basically revealing all of the metrics that are underneath, and what the actual numbers are. So for the global ranking, we are including, we've got early stage venture capital, breakout, late stage, and then we've got total funding growth. We've got combined enterprise value, number of unicorns. We've got alumni founded startups, so people who went to university in that place and then ended up going on to raise venture-backed or create venture-backed companies, and the levels of funding that they raised. At density leaders, so I mentioned that it's a per capita view. So yeah, these are changed to per capita, but many of the same metrics. And then on rising stars, we focus more on growth. So we've got the ecosystem value growth. We've got new unicorns growth. We've got GDP per capita as a weight in there as well. So it's all completely transparent. You can see exactly what the numbers are for your city. And then when it comes to the sector rankings, it is effectively the same metrics, but only looking at AI or climate tech for those metrics. So how many climate tech unicorns and investment raised at different stages within climate tech for that particular ranking. And then I know I'm hopefully not getting too complicated or confusing here, but there was then a question of what the relative rankings are. And so somebody asked, if I just read it out as well, I think with Toronto Waterloo would be stronger in AI, ranked 10th, and semiconductors ranked 7th, but this ranking is more comparative ranking against other cities that are ranking within a city. So yes, that is true. So it's again showing it could be a smaller part of the ecosystem, but it's a bigger part of that sector overall, or a bigger share of global and relative rank to other places. So again, with like fintech would be London's biggest sector, but actually it's doing even stronger in other areas. For the size of that sector. So if we have a look again at, we can have a look at Toronto. And go to sectors. And yeah, again, so it's effectively saying that it's 10 positions higher in the semiconductors ranking than its overall ranking. And it's only still really good, 7 positions higher in AI, but both in the top 10, same for cybersecurity. So yeah, it means that there's a meaningful ecosystem there relative to the global one, effectively. But good questions. I always like questions about methodology. Just checking the chat in case there's other ones that I'm missing. So to what extent do big corporates, e.g. Airbus and Toulouse, affect the sector strengths in the first instance? Are they accounted for in any way? So in this situation, in the situation of Toulouse and Airbus, not directly. So we're not including sort of older corporates in the kind of valuations or ecosystem value in this case. Sort of a demonstration of what Peter was talking about, of this kind of spillover effects and snowballing effects of different companies in an area. So there are a lot of successful sort of companies contributing towards space tech in the area, and it's no coincidence, of course, about Airbus's position there, but it's not actually accounting for that directly in this case. Yes, let's have a look at some of the other questions. So yeah, how are companies assigned to different sectors is one of the questions as well, actually. So is it self-declaration? No, so that is work that's done by Dealroom. So we assess what a company, what area a company is operating in. And we're quite careful about how we assign that taxonomy to the startups. So it's not just any company that has a .ai domain or has AI somewhere on their website, but it is a company that has AI at the core of their business, in the case of AI. But yeah, we have an extensive taxonomy, which I can also kind of show an example of, perhaps. Maybe if we have a look at an example of a company on Dealroom. So we look at SpaceX here. So we've got space as their main industry, but we have all of these other sectors underneath as well. So actually, if you're using the full platform, you can also drill down much more, much smaller into satellites and see news and companies and funding rounds in that area as well. But yes, it's done by Dealroom and not just by the startups, basically. Nice. I was going to just go on show another couple of the sectors as well, and then we're also going to do a bit of comparison mode, because that's useful for people to know about as well. So yeah, we did space. I was also going to have a look at cybersecurity because I thought that was an interesting one. Again, one of the ones that doesn't have Bay Area right at the top, but instead Tel Aviv, which has long been a center of cybersecurity companies. And again, so they're 6 positions higher than their overall ranking. DC as well, 5 positions higher, and Atlanta as well, so 28 positions higher there. And we can also have a look at the density, and we see Lausanne and Tallinn as some nice examples of, again, some of those smaller cities that have some real strength in this kind of area, which is yeah, interesting. I know that we had some ecosystem partners from Lausanne on one of the previous webinars as well. And transportation as well was a nice one I thought we could have a look at. So if we look at the champions lens, a little bit more global view in here as well. We've got Beijing and Shanghai and Bengaluru all featuring in the top 10, but also Delhi at 12 as well. So some of these areas that have really got, you know, in some cases, there's some sort of electric vehicle activity or micromobility or all sorts of different innovation going on in the transportation space, which is quite cool. But yeah, the other thing I was going to show was the compare mode. So we've got this up here as well. So this is where you might have a kind of view of which cities are ones that you kind of keep an eye on or compare yourself against in terms of different rankings. And you can have a look at how you compare with them across all of these different sectors, not just on that kind of global champions lens and those different metrics, but on these customize any of this up to 4 locations. So I mentioned Shanghai and Bengaluru as a couple of the places with that were doing well in transportation, but we can compare them across all of the different sectors as well. So we can see, so yellow Shanghai, we can see they outrank in a lot of the areas, so in gaming, in space, in health tech and life science, but actually Bengaluru is ahead in cybersecurity, it's ahead in blockchain, in food tech, in fintech, and in defense as well. So you can sort of start seeing some of the relative differences and nuances of some of these areas as well. If we go back to the table, maybe we want to pick a few from, we can pick a few from the top of one of them. So we could have a look at, or do you want to choose a few actually, Peter, and I can compare them?
Yeah, for which one?
Any we can compare all the sectors for a couple of cities.
I think robotics is cool. So maybe we can do robotics and do in München.
Yeah, so the robotics list is here, so we can maybe compare a couple of the cities from in here. So maybe Munich and Beijing. Let's have a look at comparison of them. So yeah, Beijing, obviously a really big tech hub, but yeah, that is where we see Munich actually ahead in a couple of areas, including defense and in robotics and in space tech. So they take the honors there. So some bragging rights. There's often a lot of kind of comparisons within countries that places will do as well. So if we can also have a look at Munich and Berlin. And I think this is useful actually, because sometimes there's a sort of bit of bragging rights goes on between like, oh, you know, whether in any country, like we're ahead this year or we're ahead some other year. And actually, you're not necessarily competing in the same areas. Like you can sort of be specialized and be winners in your own areas at the same time, because Munich is, you know, really strong in those areas we just mentioned, and in some of those deep tech areas like robotics and space tech. But actually, you know, Berlin has always been a strong blockchain hub and food tech as well. You've got, you know, HelloFresh and Delivery Hero. So yeah, you're sort of not necessarily competing at the same things. And this is kind of useful little reminder of that as well. Energy and fintech really strong for Berlin there as well. But if people have questions of comparisons they want to see, they can put them in the chat. As well, and we can do a few of them live, or as I said, people can sort of play along as well if they're got another browser tab open. Deep tech. So okay, yeah, someone's asked about deep tech, and there's also a question of, is there a way to see how cities have been progressing in the rankings in the past years? So yes, there is. Let me show some of that. So in the overall rankings, so the 3 main lenses, global, density leaders, and rising stars. On the right here, the arrows tell you what the position is compared to 2025. And so, yeah, you can see the movements on the macro. We haven't included that in the sector ranking just because the narrower you get, the sort of noisier the data can become. And so we kind of wanted to just look at the ecosystem overall rather than just look at what's happened in the last year within a particular sector, because it could be, particularly on the density side, you know, if you're looking at a small sector like defense, and then a startup doesn't raise, like one big startup raised 2 years ago, but not last year, you wouldn't say that that's decreased the ecosystem in defense in that city. So we more look at the kind of whole snapshot when we're looking at the sector side. But yeah, if you do want to see the changes of the main rankings, you can see those on here as well. And deep tech was one of the questions as well. So we don't have actually deep tech in here as a catch-all. We have got the sort of some of the components of it instead. So yeah, you can explore AI, defense, energy, robotics, semiconductors. So lots of these things sort of captured within deep tech, but we didn't actually include a deep tech overall here this time, but maybe we can add one. Yeah, any requests for comparisons? We try and get to them as well. But in the meantime, we can also show a couple of other bits that are new on the platform as well. So actually going to be moving away from the ecosystem index bit here and the sector strengths, because today we just released some new quarterly results. So we had these pages live already, but we have now updated them with Q2's and H1 data. So this is a snapshot overview of how much investment has been raised in H1/Q2. You can also see the combined enterprise value here. We're looking at global, but you can see the quarterly progression. You can see it by stage, and you can see the biggest rounds, industries, and sectors. But we have this data for like 500 locations, so cities, countries, regions. So you can, wherever your country is, you can find the latest data. You can also download these charts as well individually, or you can download the whole lot as a mini deck. So yeah, this is all open. Again, you can find it on the left-hand side under Stats and Insights, quarterly reports, and was just released this morning. So yeah, got the official numbers are kind of now released.
This what is interesting, if we show maybe Germany as a country.
Yeah.
Then so you see Germany, but then if you scroll down, I think the interesting part is like sort of the per stages. If you scroll down a little bit more, yeah. So then you see the countries, global and Europe, how they compete, and on a little bit higher, you can see how much they raised, but also the PC growth from previous year and 1 year, 5 years. So that question, how do cities do over time? That's a really interesting one to see here. Some cities are performing really well and they keep growing, and some. And if you scroll down even more, then I think, yeah, then you also see the sub-locations. And this is pretty cool because now you can see in Germany, like what are the cities that raised year to date the most VC, but also like which one are growing. Like, and here you see sometimes new cities getting a little bit momentum. And with the sector strength, it is, yeah, you see maybe smaller cities performing really well because they focus on one sector. And then Rotterdam, near field communication, 300 million plus round, boom, right? And then yeah, and that helps with that sector again, and then getting attention, and then more startups will do the same or maybe move to that city. So
yes, exactly. I think that caught your eye was that Rotterdam, The Hague was above Amsterdam so far this year in terms of its funding, which was interesting. Yeah, so this is all available and is out now. We're actually going to do another session in a couple of weeks where we'll kind of dive into the findings of H1 and what it all means. It's been pretty astonishing numbers, though, as you can see here, 500 billion raised globally in venture capital so far this year. So on track for $1 trillion for the first time ever. So yeah, this is all available for you. You can, as I said, share the report, download it as a PDF, download the charts, and that's out now. And then, yeah, there was one other bit we wanted to have a look at as well. I'm just going to check the chat in case there's some questions. Could we see investment size in the pools into cities? Hopefully we've just done that. Yes, so we wanted to have a look at the founder factories as well, or so-called mafias. So I'm just going to switch over to here.
So if you go to resources on the normal homepage from Dealroom, Orla showing it, and then founder operated talent, or founder mafia there. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, and then go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So we've kind of mapped. So the PayPal mafia was kind of the famous or first example of where people were talking about the snowball effect of one company and all of the founders that can create. So staff of early staff from PayPal and all the companies that they went on to found, and that includes Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, Keith Raboy, lots of other people. And so we have started mapping these, so you can see all of the people involved, the companies. You can see the kind of by cohort when those companies were founded, where they're based. Are they in the same place as where the company was founded, and what kind of sectors they're operating in as well. And yeah, we've got it for lots of different companies here. So we start with PayPal, but we've got Stripe, we've got OpenAI as well. We've got Rocket Internet in Germany, SpaceX. So that's almost like a second tier, second generation mafia as well. And yeah, these are quite nice to explore. And you can also have a look at these by different regions. So you can have a look at some of the European ones. So we can have a look at the Spotify mafia.
And this data continues further on the platform from Dealroom, and I think this is again also with the sector information. Also, if you're in a government organization or public-private economic, I think it would be good to have on your radar who is the mafia in your ecosystem, right? And then especially if they start second time purpose, for example, or they have like a unicorn experience that as operator, those kind of people, if they have seen how a company really scale, that is a really good indicator that they could maybe do well. So having that on the radar in your ecosystem is really important, I think.
Yeah. Mohammed asks, why do we call them mafias? Is it a double-edged description? Arguably, yes. We call them mafias because it was the phrase coined about the PayPal mafia. I think it was the cover of, I'm not sure which magazine, that kind of first showed them all round a table. But founder factories is another term that's also used, so we can use that one as well. Yes, we also recently did a nice report on this where we mapped the founder factories of Europe and Israel. We did that with Excel and some other data partnership with Revelio Labs as well. So you can download that on the reports page too. Yeah, but if we have any other questions for the chat or comparisons you'd like to make, let us know. But yeah, all of this stuff is available on the platform. We encourage you to play around with the data, and as I mentioned before, you can find the index data and the sector strengths over here on the left in under locations and tech ecosystem index, and those quarterly reports are on the stats and insights on the left as well, and quarterly reports. So do explore them, do let us know how you get on. If you have any more questions, always happy to chat through them as well. Yeah, we would love to have more conversations about this, and feel free to get in touch.
Exactly. Perfect. Yes.
Cool. Well, I don't think there's any more questions just yet. So yeah, we'll say thank you very much for joining. We'll send out the links so you can all try this out yourself. We are recording this session, so we'll send a recap video as well, and we'll share the slides that we had at the beginning too. As I said, in a couple of weeks, we've got another session where we will unpack the H1 data. So we'll include that link in the follow-up video and for that as well. But thank you all for joining, and we'll see you soon.